At the start of the movie, Jillian Armacost watches out her window as a shuttle takes off. She is a second-grade teacher at a junior high. Suddenly, one of her students informs her that there is a phone call for her. Jillian takes the call, which turns out to be from the NASA Communications Center. The phone is then connected to her husband, Spencer Armacost, who is an astronaut working for NASA. The call seems inappropriate for Jillian, as her husband should be orbiting the Earth right now. Regardless, she happily chats with him. Later at home, she talks about this with her sister Nan. The latter thinks Jillian is very lucky to have a husband like Spencer. Suddenly, the TV starts showing breaking news covering the recent accident at one of NASA's outer space stations. The incident included her husband and another NASA captain named Alex Strack. At the same time, the doorbell rings, and when Jillian answers it, a man named Sherman Reese introduces himself and says that he is from NASA. Prior to explaining everything to her, Sherman asks Jillian to go with him. In the next scene, Jillian is taken to the NASA headquarters where she meets Natalie, Alex Strack's wife. The devastated women embrace each other, believing that their husbands are dead. However, the NASA director arrives and gives them the good news. Their husbands are safe and alive. The bad news is they're getting plowed by aliens right now. Just kidding. It is then revealed that Spencer and Alex were working in outer space, repairing a satellite, when suddenly there was an explosion. Due to this, the NASA Communications Center lost contact with them for a while. The director informs the wives that their husbands have boarded a shuttle and are now returning to Earth. Sherman then taps on a broadcast camera, enabling the women to see their husbands from Earth. A few hours later, Alex and Spencer land safely, but are taken to the hospital due to injuries from the explosion. The doctor assures Jillian that her husband will be alright. However, Alex has sustained major injuries, so he has to be kept in the intensive care unit. As the days pass, Jillian spends her time sitting beside her husband's bed while he is recovering. Eventually, Spencer wakes up, relieving Jillian from her worries. However, Alex's condition continues to deteriorate. In one instance, he suffers from a medical emergency, because of which he requires electrical cardioversion. When Alex starts acting violently, the doctors have to resuscitate him. Natalie tearfully watches her husband from the sidelines, unable to help him at all. But thankfully, after weeks of excruciating waiting, the doctors manage to save Alex and put him on medication. Soon after, the astronauts are praised for their heroic deeds. While at a celebration party, Natalie shares her concern with Jillian. After her husband recovered, he hasn't uttered a word about the accident. But it turns out not only Alex, but Spencer has also been rather quiet. Nonetheless, the two women conclude that their husbands simply need some time to recover from the nightmare. After the party, Spencer tells his wife that he has decided to leave the service, and he's accepted a position with a New York-based company, McLaren. Jillian isn't happy about leaving the city, as she has become accustomed to it, but she doesn't have much of a choice. The following day, while the couple is attending another event, they notice Alex's aggressive behavior towards his wife. He is arguing with her over something at a nearby table. Suddenly, Alex starts bleeding from his mouth and drops to the floor. Spencer hurries to check on his colleague, but it's too late. Alex is pronounced dead on the scene, devastating everyone around. Soon after, a press conference is held, where the NASA representatives attribute Alex's death to a stroke. During the funeral, Jillian approaches Natalie in private to comfort her. Natalie shares that lately, it felt like her husband was talking to somebody, not of our world. She also feels like someone is living inside of her. Jillian comforts her, thinking it's the trauma that caused Alex's death. She then joins Spencer, leaving Natalie alone in the room. A few minutes later, they suddenly hear a scream. Everyone rushes to Natalie's room, only to find her dead in the bathtub. It turns out that she committed the unthinkable, unable to bear the pain of her husband's loss anymore. Sometime after, Jillian and Spencer move to New York. At a work party, she notices her husband acting differently. He was never a social person, but now he has many elite circles. Jillian asks him to tell her about the spacewalk incident and what happened during the 2 minutes when their connection with NASA was shut. However, when he starts answering, the next thing Jillian knows, she is in bed with him. Everything seems like a dream to her, and she can only hear Spencer's voice in the background. Later, when she wakes up, Jillian feels a sharp pain in her stomach. She also hears strange noises inside her head, something which she has never experienced before. In the next scene, Jillian continues to be overwhelmed by what she experienced the other night. She calls her sister Nan and informs her that she cannot live in such a huge city as New York, and that things have been very weird lately. Soon afterward, Jillian finds out that she is pregnant with twins, but for some reason, she feels no joy. Two heads are not better than one when they're emerging from your crotch. One evening, Spencer takes Jillian to have dinner at his boss, Mr. McLaren's place. The latter is a very sophisticated and materialistic person, something which Jillian dislikes. When he and his wife go away to put their daughter to sleep, Spencer asks Jillian what has been going on with her lately. Jillian tells him that she doesn't belong to his newly found elite circles, and neither does he. She reminds him that he had once told her he would never give up his career as an astronaut. But after the accident in space, Spencer has changed. Then, with a nervous tone, Jillian reveals that she is pregnant, much to the delight of Spencer. The following day, the couple goes to the doctor to examine the pregnancy. When she and the doctor are alone, Jillian shares that earlier in her life, after her parents died, she sought psychiatric care because she started to see her loved ones dead, including herself. She also tells the doctor that recently, she has been having nightmares, which she fears might affect the pregnancy. Hearing all this, the doctor advises Jillian to give her a call if an emergency comes up. After the meeting, Jillian decides to join a support group of mothers who are expecting twins. This turns out to be a great idea, as she finally gets the motivation and help she was looking for. Cut to a few months later, Jillian appears to be very comfortable with her pregnancy. She and her husband are now happily looking forward to the birth of their babies. One day, when Jillian visits the baby store, she is suddenly approached by Sherman Reese, who looks worried. He says that he wants to talk about the 2 minutes when her husband didn't have a connection with the NASA Communications Center. He also asks Jillian if she has noticed Spencer acting differently ever since the accident. It is revealed that Sherman has been terminated from NASA because after his investigation, he had insisted to the authorities that something was wrong with Spencer. Though all the tests came back normal, he shows Jillian some official papers and proves that Spencer's signature is different ever since his return from space. Additionally, his medical indicators have also changed. However, Jillian thinks Sherman is crazy, and her hunch is further confirmed when she learns that he was fired by NASA. She asks him not to pursue her, but Sherman is persistent. When he reveals that Natalie was pregnant at the time of her death, Jillian is taken aback. Sherman is fully convinced that something more than just an explosion happened while the two astronauts were orbiting Earth. He then gives Jillian a tape recorder, which contains the entire conversation between the astronauts while they were in space. Later, Jillian listens to the tape and shockingly learns that Alex and Spencer saw something during those 2 minutes, something which they had never seen or heard of in their entire lives. Suddenly, there is a knock on the door, and Jillian nervously goes to open it. To her relief, it's just Nod, who has come all the way to New York to surprise her sister. As the two chat, Jillian explains everything that has been happening in her life as of late. She also talks about her recent findings on Spencer, but warns her sister to not tell anybody about it. One evening, Jillian gets a call from Sherman and shockingly learns that Natalie was also pregnant with twins. She frantically asks what the autopsy showed about the twins, and Sherman responds that he needs to meet her in person to show her. The following morning, the two meet near the subway, but just as they are about to discuss Natalie's autopsy, Spencer shows up. Jillian quickly hides herself, and the two men start chatting about their time in NASA. When the conversation drags for too long, Jillian runs away from the scene. Later, she tries to reach Sherman by calling the hotel, where he is currently staying, but to no avail. Thankfully, as a backup plan, Sherman has sent Jillian a key to a vault. There is also a note addressed to her, which points her to a location. Upon reaching it, Jillian discovers photographs of her husband and learns that Sherman had been keeping an eye on him since his return from the space mission. She also finds a VHS video cassette, but when she tries to play it, the light suddenly goes out. Jillian panics and runs away from the vault. By now, she is certain that something evil is after her. Later, at home, she watches the video where Sherman demonstrates what really happened in space. He explains that there was a mysterious signal near Spencer and Alex when they lost contact with NASA. Sherman believes the signal was an alien that wanted to get to Earth, so they took over the astronaut's body. However, Alex's vitals didn't sustain the alien's mass, causing his death. Jillian relates the video to her husband's recent erratic behavior and how she has been facing nightmares about her own death. She also recognizes the signal, which sounds exactly like the one she had heard during the work party in New York when she was somewhat unconscious. After seeing the video, Jillian is convinced that her husband is not who he says he is. He is an alien, and there is a high possibility that her unborn twins are also from out of this world. Following this realization, Jillian attempts a medical abortion, but is soon caught by Spencer in the act. He then slaps her, warning her to not do anything like this in the future. In response, Jillian throws herself down a flight of stairs and wakes up in the hospital. Spencer reveals that the twins survived the fall, but warns her to keep silent about what had happened. While recovering, Jillian sees a dream where her sister Non is killed by Spencer. Freaked out, she leaves the hospital on her own, but Spencer follows her because of his weird connection with the alien twins inside of her. She arrives home, quickly barricades the door, and goes into the room where she dreamed her sister was killed. Jillian then sees her body on the floor, but then it is gone, probably because it was a vision. When Spencer breaks his way into the apartment, she has flooded the kitchen floor with water, with a radio in the sink and an extension cord plugged into the wall. Jillian holds the ends of the cords in each hand and tells Spencer to stay away from her. She then notices bloody nail marks on his hand and realizes that her sister really is dead, just as she had dreamed. In the final confrontation, Jillian tells Spencer that she knows who he is and that he killed her sister. Hearing this, the alien inside Spencer's body finally speaks up and says that he did kill Non because she was getting in his way. Now he lives inside of Jillian through his link with the twins. Just then, water begins pouring down from the ceiling, and at the perfect time, Jillian lifts her feet off the wet floor and connects the cords. This sends a deadly wave of current towards Spencer, killing him once and for all. However, the alien inside of his body comes out and transmits into Jillian. Several years after the incident, we learn that Jillian has remarried, and her twin sons are living a completely normal life. Her current husband also turns out to be an astronaut, just like Spencer once was. The movie ends as Jillian proudly watches her sons board the school bus. She is sure that they will also end up like their father. Failures. No. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.